we got this request in which we have to create a process which can copy a given VBA code into multiple files. Okay, and basically these files will be generating from a list of data frames. So let's start with this. So for this, I have already created uh, two dummy data frames. Okay, so I'm just going to run these. Okay, so these are the dummy data frames which we will be writing into multiple files. And so let's start. So first of all, we are going to use Openpyxl because it gives us a feature called keep VBA. So it has a parameter keep VBA which allows us to write any macro enabled file, and which can be used later on to creating different workbooks. Okay, so I'm just going to import the uh, necessary libraries. Okay, so these two will be very helpful for us. Load workbook will allow us to read our template in which our VBA code is there. And data frame to rows will help us to write these data frame into Excel files. Okay, so the first step will be reading macro template. So for that, we have to use uh, load workbook. Okay, and I have a test workbook file which contains the VBA code. So we are going to use keep VBA as true, and we have to save this. Okay, let's name it existing VB workbook. Okay, and okay, it will take a few seconds to load. In the meantime, we can create a worksheet from this. So from existing workbook, we have to extract the active one. The active sheet will be the first sheet, and then the second step will be deleting any of the existing data, because we don't need existing row from this template. If there is any row available in this template, we don't need this because we have to copy our data frame in a fresh file. Okay, so for that we have delete rows, which will delete from 1 to existing sheet dot max row. So it will check for all the rows. Okay, okay, so we are done here. So this was the first step. So next, coming to the second step, where we'll be reading the first data frame and writing into a macro enabled file. Okay, so for this we are going to use the data frame to rows. So I'm just going to do this. Data frame to rows, we have to pass our data frame name here, index equals to false, and header equals to true because we need the headers. And we have to write it into, we'll be appending the data into existing worksheet. So we have to write all the rows, and now we got all the data in existing dot worksheet. So we can save this as, let's name it new workbook dot excel sm. Okay, sorry, workbook dot save. Okay, so it just created new workbook. So this is the name of the file, new workbook. And if I open this one to enable the macro, okay, so it should be working. So let's say I'm getting this file here. Okay, adding a new row and some data. Okay, so this seems to be working perfectly fine. So this was it. It's working for one file. Now let's create a list of data frame. Okay, so we got two data frames, tf1 and okay. So now what we are going to do, we are going to create a function. So for now, I'm not going to create a function. I'm just going to write a for loop to iterate through all these data frames and create multiple files. Okay, so we are going to generating macro enabled. Okay, so we have a list of data frames. Okay, so I'm just going to enumerate because we'll be giving some file naming and that. So what we have to do, so first thing we have to get the correction from our workbook and delete the rows. Okay, and then we have to iterate through the data frame rows and all the row into our worksheet. Okay, so instead of df1 it will be df. Okay, so till here everything is fine. Now writing into multiple files, because if we are going to give it one hard-coded name, it will like write all the changes and it will give us only the latest one. Okay, but we don't want that. We want multiple files. So you can just do something like that and just macro enabled reports. Okay, and here we can pass on I. It will give us the count of the data frame. Okay, so let's run it. So we just ran. If I go here, we can see macro enable report 1, macro enable report 2. And if I scroll up, so our data frames are like these. First one is having a name and age, the second one is having city and population. So let's open the first one and see like what's the output here. So name and age, check if the macro is working. Okay, that seems to be working. Okay, we don't need it. Let's check the second one. Okay, city and population seems to be working. Okay, perfect. So so this was the way one of the way how you can read a macro enabled template or macro enabled file and copy the macro to multiple uh, files. Okay, so if you want, you can just create a function which can be called upon once required. But here I just created a for loop, so you just have to wrap it with a function. So I hope it helps, and thank you.